Hollywood made them look untouchable. Rich, famous, adored by millions, these stars seemed to have everything. But behind the cameras, their bodies were fighting battles no amount of money could erase. Parkinson's, HIV, multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, and diseases with no known cure. Some kept acting through the pain, others nearly vanished. These are the stars who discovered fame cannot protect you from your own body. Number 1. Michael J. Fox. In the 1980s, Michael J. Fox was the kid who could outrun time itself. Back to the Future turned him into one of Hollywood's most recognizable faces, with that grin, that DeLorean, and a career moving at 88 miles per hour. Then, in 1991, while filming Doc Hollywood, something terrifyingly small appeared. His pinky finger began to tremble. Fox was only 29 when doctors gave him the diagnosis that would change everything: Parkinson's disease. For years, audiences saw the same energetic star, while almost no one knew what was happening behind the camera. Fox kept working, kept smiling, and kept the diagnosis private until 1998. Hollywood had made him famous for traveling through time. But Parkinson's came with a cruel joke. There was no machine capable of taking him back to the body he had before. Instead of disappearing, Fox did something unexpected. In 2000, he created the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's research and turned his celebrity into a weapon against the disease. The man once chased by movie villains was now chasing something far more difficult: better treatments and ultimately a cure. Even as tremors and movement problems became increasingly visible, he continued speaking publicly and advocating for millions living with Parkinson's. And somehow, the story did not end with a quiet retirement. Fox returned to full-time television in 2013 with The Michael J. Fox Show and continued appearing on screen, allowing audiences to see the reality he could no longer hide. His body may shake, his movements may betray him, but the charisma that made Marty McFly unforgettable never completely left. Parkinson's changed Michael J. Fox's life, but it never got the final line. Number 2. Selma Blair. For years, Selma Blair was the sharp-tongued Hollywood beauty audiences remembered from Cruel Intentions and Legally Blonde. On camera, she looked glamorous, confident, almost effortlessly cool. Off camera, her own body was quietly turning against her. She stumbled, dropped things, battled crushing exhaustion, and struggled with symptoms doctors could not fully explain. Then, in 2018, an MRI finally revealed the truth. Selma Blair had multiple sclerosis. The diagnosis was terrifying, but strangely, it also brought relief. Blair had spent years wondering why her body seemed to betray her, while everyone else saw a perfectly healthy actress. MS could affect her balanced speech, vision, memory, and ability to walk. Suddenly, the mysterious falls and overwhelming fatigue had a name. Hollywood loves a dramatic reveal, but this was one plot twist she definitely never auditioned for. Instead of hiding, Blair walked straight into the spotlight. At the 2019 Vanity Fair Oscar party, she appeared in an elegant gown, with a customized cane turning a mobility aid into one of the most unforgettable images of the night. She later documented the brutal reality of treatment, including a stem cell transplant, in 2019. There were moments of weakness, pain, and uncertainty, but she refused to make disability something audiences should look away from. In 2021, Blair revealed that her MS was in remission, though remission was not the same as a cure. She continued using her visibility to challenge the way disability is seen in Hollywood and beyond. The actress who once worried that illness might erase her career instead became more recognizable for showing the truth. Selma Blair did not get the miracle of making MS disappear. She did something more powerful. She stopped disappearing because of it. Number 3. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen once lived like Hollywood had forgotten to install a speed limit. Platoon made him a serious movie star, Wall Street proved he could stand beside legends, and 2.5 Men eventually turned him into one of television's highest-paid actors. Money, fame, parties, scandals, Sheen seemed to collect everything in excess. Then came the secret even his wild public image could not laugh away. He was HIV positive. In November 2015, Sheen revealed the diagnosis publicly, saying he had known about it for roughly 4 years. Suddenly, the man famous for outrageous headlines was discussing something painfully real. HIV has no cure, but modern treatment can suppress the virus and allow people to live long lives. For Sheen, however, the medical battle quickly became tangled with an even messier Hollywood specialty controversy. Several women accused him of failing to disclose his HIV status before intimate relationships. Sheen disputed allegations made against him, but the legal drama kept growing. One former girlfriend later reached a $120,000 settlement with him over claims that he had exposed her to HIV without informing her beforehand. Apparently, even Charlie Sheen's health story could not arrive without lawyers' headlines and enough chaos for another season of television. Yet something unexpected happened after the confession. His announcement pushed HIV back into mainstream conversation and drew enormous attention to testing and treatment. Behind the infamous interviews and years of self-destruction was a man forced to confront a disease that fame could not intimidate. Charlie Sheen survived Hollywood excess, public humiliation, and an HIV diagnosis. The wildest twist may be that he is still here to tell the story. Number 4. Sarah Hyland. Every week, millions watched Sarah Hyland play the bubbly boy, crazy Haley Dunphy on Modern Family. She was young, funny, glamorous, and living inside one of television's biggest comedies. What viewers could not see was that Sarah had been fighting for her health since birth. She was born with kidney dysplasia, meaning her kidneys never developed properly. By 21, one of Hollywood's brightest young stars desperately needed a new kidney. In 2012, her father gave her one of his. For several years, it worked until Sarah received devastating news in 2016. Her body was rejecting the kidney that had given her a second chance at life. Treatments failed. By 2017, she was hooked to a dialysis machine 3 times a week, 4 hours at a time, then returning to work as if everything were normal. Hollywood wanted Haley Dunphy to keep smiling. Sarah's kidneys apparently had other plans. Then her brother Ian stepped forward. He was a match and offered Sarah his kidney. In September 2017, she underwent a second transplant, receiving what she later described as another chance at life from her own family. Behind the sitcoms were hospital rooms, scars, medications, exhaustion, and more than a dozen surgeries. At times, the emotional weight became almost as frightening as the physical illness. Yet Sarah kept filming. She later admitted there are Modern Family episodes she barely remembers making because she was so exhausted. That makes those cheerful scenes suddenly feel very different. The girl cracking jokes on television could leave the set and head straight to dialysis. Sarah Hyland's story was never just about surviving kidney failure. It was about a father, a brother, and a family literally giving pieces of themselves to keep her alive. If Sarah Hyland's story of receiving kidneys from both her father and brother touched your heart, leave a heart in the comments for the family members who would sacrifice anything to keep someone they love alive. Number 5. Morgan Freeman. That voice could make God sound underqualified. Morgan Freeman spent decades playing presidents' mentors, detectives, and even God himself, becoming one of the most commanding figures in Hollywood. But in 2008, one violent night changed his body permanently. His car rolled off a Mississippi highway, leaving him with broken bones and devastating nerve damage in his left arm. Doctors operated for hours, hoping his hand would recover. It never truly did. Freeman later revealed that he suffered from fibromyalgia, with excruciating pain shooting up and down his arm. His left hand became largely unusable and prone to swelling, forcing him to wear the compression glove fans often notice at public events. Suddenly, the man who looked indestructible on screen could not even rely on both hands. The cruelest part was not simply the pain. Freeman loved flying planes, sailing, riding horses, and living with the freedom his success had earned him. Many of those pleasures became difficult or impossible. Hollywood had given him an Oscar fame and enough iconic roles for several lifetimes. His damaged nerves apparently were unimpressed by the resume. Still, Freeman refused to disappear. He adapted, kept acting, took long walks, and even learned to swing a golf club, mostly with one arm. The pain remained, and the hand never returned to normal, but neither managed to silence that unmistakable voice. Morgan Freeman could not undo the accident that changed his life. He simply learned how to keep moving through what it left behind. Number 6. Chris Hemsworth. Chris Hemsworth had spent years playing Thor, a god who could survive monsters' armies and the end of worlds. Then one simple blood test delivered a warning no hammer could smash. While filming the National Geographic series Limitless, Hemsworth underwent genetic testing and discovered that he carries 2 copies of the APOE4 variant 1 inherited from each parent. The result placed him at a dramatically higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease later in life. Here is the twist. Hollywood headlines nearly ruined. Hemsworth does not have Alzheimer's, and he was not diagnosed with dementia. The test revealed genetic risk, not destiny. Still, hearing that his chances were much higher than average hit hard, especially because Alzheimer's had already touched his family. For a man famous for looking almost superhuman, suddenly, the most frightening enemy was something hidden inside his own DNA. Instead of treating the news like a death sentence, Hemsworth changed the way he looked at time. Sleep, stress, exercise, nutrition, and brain health became more important, while family moved even closer to the center of his life. He also allowed the deeply personal discovery to remain in Limitless, hoping that sharing it could encourage others to think seriously about their own health. Apparently, even Thor eventually learns that immortality was never included in the Marvel contract. What makes his story unsettling is that nothing visibly appears wrong. He can still lift weights, make movies, laugh with his family, and look every inch the superhero audiences recognize. Yet somewhere in his genetic code sits a warning about a future that may never come. Chris Hemsworth is not fighting Alzheimer's today. He is fighting the fear of what tomorrow might bring, and refusing to let that fear steal the life he has right now. Number 7. Kathleen Turner. In the 1980s, Kathleen Turner was pure Hollywood fire. Body heat made her a sex symbol, romancing the stone, turned her into a box office powerhouse, and that smoky voice became impossible to forget. Then, almost without warning, The woman who seemed unstoppable began waking up in agony. Her hands swelled, her neck locked. Walking became torture. Eventually, doctors gave the nightmare a name: rheumatoid arthritis. At its worst, Turner could barely hold a glass or move without pain. One doctor even warned that she might spend the rest of her life in a wheelchair. She fired him. That response sounds almost funny until you realize how terrified she actually was. Acting depended on movement confidence and physical control, and suddenly her own joints were stealing all three. The medication created another cruel twist. Steroids caused dramatic changes in her appearance, and tabloids quickly decided alcohol must be the explanation. Turner stayed quiet because she feared Hollywood would rather hire someone rumored to drink than an actress with an unpredictable chronic disease. Eventually, alcohol did become a real problem, as she used it to numb the pain, and in 2002 she entered treatment. But the ending refused to cooperate with the prediction. Newer treatments helped bring the disease under better control, and Turner kept returning to the stage and screen. The woman once told she might never walk freely again continued performing decades later. Hollywood watched her body change and whispered that she was finished. Kathleen Turner answered in the only language the industry understands. She kept showing up. Number 8. Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon built his career by never slowing down. Actor, comedian, rapper, producer, television host, he seemed determined to squeeze 3 careers into one lifetime. Then, during a New Year trip to Aspen in 2012, exhaustion, swollen knees, breathing problems, and severe kidney pain sent him to the hospital. The diagnosis was frightening: lupus nephritis, an autoimmune disease attacking his kidneys. Cannon tried to bounce back almost immediately. His body had other ideas. Just weeks later, he was hospitalized again with a pulmonary embolism, a dangerous blood clot in his lungs linked to his kidney problems. Suddenly, the man famous for juggling endless projects was juggling medications instead. At one point, he recalled taking around 20 different drugs. Apparently, lupus was the first boss in Hollywood that did not care how packed his schedule was. That scare forced him to rewrite his entire lifestyle. Cannon stepped away from his early morning radio show, slept more, exercised regularly, and followed a strict diet with very little sodium. Fish, vegetables, and fruit replaced the fast-moving routine he had taken for granted. He later admitted that simply waking up unable to move could be terrifying, but learning to respect his body became part of surviving the disease. Rather than hide the diagnosis, Cannon turned the camera toward it. He created the Incredible Health Hustle to document doctor visits, treatment, and his return to work, while also supporting lupus awareness organizations. There is still no waiting conveniently at the end of his story. But the illness that once forced Nick Cannon to stop moving ultimately taught him something fame never could: sometimes staying alive is the biggest production of all. Number 9. Daisy Ridley. Daisy Ridley was only 23 when Star Wars suddenly blasted her from relative obscurity into global superstardom. As Rey, she could fight stormtroopers, face Kylo Ren, and carry the future of a billion-dollar franchise on her shoulders. But long before she ever touched a lightsaber, Ridley was already fighting a painful battle inside her own body. At just 15, she was diagnosed with endometriosis. Surgery followed, along with years of consultations. For a while, things improved, then the pain returned. Another problem began attacking something Hollywood watches almost obsessively: her appearance. Ridley developed severe skin issues and tried product after product, antibiotics and different treatments, without getting the answers she wanted. Becoming the face of Star Wars while feeling terrified of showing your own face without makeup is the kind of irony Hollywood could never script better. Eventually, Ridley learned she also had polycystic ovaries. The physical symptoms were difficult, but what really shook her was the effect on her confidence. She admitted that her skin problems left her feeling deeply self-conscious and reluctant to leave home without makeup. On the red carpet, she looked like the fearless new heroine of a generation. Behind closed doors, she was worrying about something as painfully ordinary as looking into a mirror. Instead of pretending everything was perfect, Ridley spoke publicly about the experience and urged others to listen when their bodies tell them something is wrong. Doctors, hormone tests, specialists, and years of frustration had taught her a lesson no Jedi Master could deliver. Daisy Ridley became famous for playing a woman discovering extraordinary power. In real life, some of her greatest strength came from admitting that even a Star Wars hero can hurt. Number 10. Catherine Zeta-Jones. Catherine Zeta-Jones appeared to have won the Hollywood lottery. She had an Oscar breathtaking beauty, a legendary husband, and a career millions dreamed about. But while photographers captured the glamorous version, her private world was collapsing. In 2010, Michael Douglas began fighting stage 4 cancer, and Catherine stood beside him while quietly struggling with a battle of her own. When Douglas finally announced that his tumor was gone, everyone expected celebration. Instead, in April 2011, Catherine checked herself into a mental health facility and revealed that she was being treated for bipolar II disorder. The condition can bring devastating depressive episodes, along with periods of unusually elevated energy. She had spent months supporting her husband, caring for their family, and smiling for cameras while the pressure inside her kept building. For Hollywood, where stars are expected to look flawless even when life is falling apart, the admission was almost rebellious. Catherine refused to dress her condition up as exhaustion or hide behind some convenient celebrity excuse. She sought professional treatment, then returned to work. 2 years later, she voluntarily entered treatment again to continue managing the disorder. Fame could buy privacy, luxury, and the best seats in the house, but apparently not immunity from your own mind. What made her revelation powerful was its simplicity. One of the most glamorous women in Hollywood admitted that she needed help, and she did not apologize for it. Catherine continued acting, raising her family, and speaking openly about mental health. The woman audiences once saw as almost impossibly perfect revealed something far more memorable. Sometimes strength does not look like winning the battle alone. Sometimes it looks like knowing when to ask for help. Number 11. Pete Davidson. Pete Davidson built a career making millions laugh, but his own stomach had a vicious sense of humor. Long before Saturday Night Live made him famous, Davidson was diagnosed with Crohn's disease at around 17 or 18. The chronic illness attacked his digestive system, bringing severe stomach pain, difficulty, eating exhaustion, and days when simply getting out of bed could feel like work. Comedy became his escape, but the disease never cared whether there was a live audience waiting. Davidson has described periods when his stomach hurt all day, and eating became extremely difficult. Behind the skinny frame that tabloids constantly discussed was something far less glamorous than celebrity gossip. His body was fighting chronic inflammation that could flare without warning. Davidson has openly said marijuana helped him manage his appetite and stomach discomfort, even claiming there were times he struggled to perform without it. That admission created plenty of headlines because apparently, being a comedian with Crohn's was not complicated enough. Medical treatment for the disease can also include medications designed to control inflammation and suppress abnormal immune responses. Yet Crohn's never stopped him from reaching Saturday Night Live movies, stand-up stages, and celebrity status. The guy audiences watched joke about his chaotic life was often performing while dealing with a condition they could not see. Pete Davidson turned pain into punchlines, but underneath the laughter was a much tougher reality. Sometimes, the funniest person in the room is fighting a battle nobody in the room knows exists. Number 12. Gina Rodriguez. Millions fell in love with Gina Rodriguez as the bright, unstoppable star of Jane the Virgin. She smiled, danced, cracked jokes, and made television fame look almost effortless. But long before Hollywood learned her name, her body had already delivered a warning. Gina was diagnosed with hypothyroidism at 19, then Hashimoto's disease at 26, an autoimmune condition in which the immune system attacks the thyroid. For Gina, the illness came with fatigue, weight changes, memory problems, and a metabolism that seemed determined to ignore Hollywood's obsession with being thin. At first, she rebelled. She sometimes skipped medication, ignored foods that made her feel worse, and questioned why she should work out if the scale refused to cooperate. In an industry where gaining a few pounds can generate headlines, Hashimoto's apparently arrived with absolutely no respect for casting directors. Eventually, Gina stopped fighting her body and started working with it. She became more disciplined about medication, food, exercise, and understanding what actually made her feel healthy. Her relationship with Joe Lo Cicero also helped change the way she viewed weight. Instead of treating a number on the scale, like a verdict on her worth, she began focusing on strength, energy, and the life she wanted to live. The disease never magically disappeared, and there is still no cure for Hashimoto's. Gina has also spoken about anxiety and panic attacks connected partly to thyroid medication levels. Yet she continued starring, directing, producing, and building a career that refused to shrink around her diagnosis. Hollywood kept asking what size Gina Rodriguez should be. She eventually found a better question: how healthy, powerful, and alive could she become? Number 13. Hugo Weaving. On screen, Hugo Weaving looked like the last man who would ever lose control. As Agent Smith in The Matrix, he was cold, precise, almost machine-like. As Elrond in The Lord of the Rings, he carried the calm authority of someone who had survived centuries. But at just 13, long before Hollywood knew his face, Weaving was diagnosed with epilepsy, a condition that could strike without warning. He later said seizures came roughly once a year for decades. During each one, his final thought before losing awareness was terrifyingly simple. He believed he was dying. Medication became part of his life for around 30 years. Hollywood loves actors who surrender control to a character. Epilepsy was different. It could take control without asking. The illness also changed his life away from the cameras. Because of the risk of another, Weaving never learned to drive and never obtained a driver's license. That is a strangely ordinary limitation for the man who chased Neo through digital worlds and commanded armies across Middle-earth. Still, he refused to let epilepsy choose his career for him. Then something remarkable happened. Weaving said the seizures eventually stopped in his 40s. Even so, he remained cautious about driving after spending most of his life without it. Audiences saw a man famous for absolute control, while behind that face was someone who had spent decades waiting for his own brain to betray him. Epilepsy shaped Hugo Weaving's life, but it never managed to write his ending. Number 14. Melanie Griffith. Melanie Griffith had survived fame, addiction, tabloid scandals, and decades under Hollywood's unforgiving spotlight. But there was one terrifying problem she could never predict. Without warning, her body would shut down. She suffered violent seizures for years, yet doctors still struggled to explain what was happening. Then, during a glamorous trip to the Cannes Film Festival in 2011, the nightmare struck twice. Griffith was aboard a yacht when she suffered a major grand mal seizure and was rushed to a hospital. She returned to the boat only to experience another one. This time, doctors performed further testing, and after years of uncertainty, she was finally diagnosed with epilepsy. Imagine attending one of the most glamorous film festivals on Earth and leaving with a diagnosis that explains why your own brain has occasionally been pulling the emergency brake. Medication helped bring the seizures under control. Griffith later revealed that she had experienced around 6 grand mal seizures over roughly 20 years. By 2017, she said she had gone about 4 years without another episode. She also joked that divorcing Antonio Banderas had been a real healer because the stress in her life had dramatically decreased. Behind the famous face was a woman who had spent years frightened by something doctors had failed to name. Griffith eventually spoke publicly about epilepsy because she wanted other women to take neurological symptoms seriously. Hollywood had given her plenty of dramatic scenes, but few could compete with waking up after a seizure and wondering when the next one might come.